Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a guide for Venice for EU4 1.32 Origins. So Venice is a nation located primarily in Italy with some possessions in the Balkans and in the Aegean Islands as well. We do start off with a subject, Naxos, and we do start off guaranteeing Albania and the Knights. But we are outside of the HRE. Now Venice, even though it's such a rich and such a powerful nation, it's not often taken into consideration with the most popular nations to form Italy with, such as Milan, Florence, or even Naples. But make no mistake, by using this guide, you will become the richest and most powerful nation in the world in no time, and you will be dominating trade all throughout the Mediterranean. And before we begin, if you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like, it really helps out a lot, and if you want to see more guides or more EU4 videos in general, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. Let's take a look at what we need to do as Venice. Now Venice starts off with a unique government form, the Venetian government, which is basically a glorified merchant republic. It gives us +1 merchants, minus 0.1 yearly corruption, and minus 50 max absolutism. Of course, this is because we're a republic. We also start off with a very powerful monument, the Doge's Palace, and at tier 2 it gives us plus 0.5 yearly prestige, plus 0.25 republican tradition yearly, and plus 20% reform progress growth. It's super powerful. We're going to be at high republican tradition all the time, and we're going to be blazing through these reforms over here. Of course, our unique government form also prevents us from having estates. We don't have any estates, but we do have factions. The aristocrats here, they take away trade power but give us morale of armies and sailors. They're pretty good, and you're gonna want to keep them in power while you're at war. The traders here, they take away tax but give us trade power and naval maintenance discounts. They're not very good. You're not gonna be picking them very often. And then we have the guilds, which give us a construction discount, plus 10% goods produced, super powerful, and minus 10% national manpower. You're gonna want to put these guys in charge when you're at peace. For now, at the start, keep the aristocrats in power. So the first thing when you start up your Venice game is you're gonna want to check whether Austria and Genoa are friendly with you. It's about 50-50 to be honest, and in my case we can see that Austria is actually friendly with me and they would ally me right off the bat. But even if they wouldn't ally you right off the bat, if they're neutral or friendly, by improving relations a bit, you can ally them in 2 or 3 months. And in my case, Genoa is also friendly, which is awesome. Those are 2 pretty good allies we want to get. So there we go. I will send Austria an alliance offer immediately. If you can't, you should start improving relations with them. And we are also going to start spying on Byzantium. That's what we're going to do with our first 2 diplomats. And we're also going to start improving relations with our subject Naxos. Now it's time for some rivals. I recommend rivaling Byzantium, the Ottomans, and whoever Austria has rivaled as well. Let's see, in my case, they've rivaled France, Provence, and the Ottomans. Now, unfortunately, I can't rival any of those guys, so I'll just rival Serbia or someone like that. It's no big deal. Next, we're going to get these 7 light ships, tell them to go home during war, and tell them to protect trade in Ragusa. And since we don't have burghers, we can't take burgher loans, but we are going to be taking regular loans. I recommend taking 4. And with those 4 loans, we're gonna start construction on 10 galleys. And there we go, I'm building them all over these provinces here. Now it's time for some advisors as well. Get whichever level 1 admin advisor you want, preferably an inflation reduction guy. I don't have one, so I'm gonna get this tax guy. Get a Diplo rep, improve relations, or spy network level 1 Diplo advisor. I have a Diplo rep guy. And get whichever level 1 mill advisor you can, preferably a morale of armies, fort defense, or a discipline guy. I have a morale of armies guy. And for your naval doctrine, you can select either of these 3. They're all excellent for Venice. We're a naval power already, and you can even swap around between them later in the game. The button is hidden, so not a lot of people know it, but it's right here. Select naval doctrine. And I recommend taking free oarsmen at the start, although you could swap out to merchant navy later on. And now we're also going to take our main army down to this province, and once that army arrives there, we're going to take that army down there as well. Now, you should wait for your spy network on Byzantium to reach 20, and in the meantime, you should be improving relations with Austria to ally them, with Genoa to ally them, and even Castile and Poland. Those are 4 alliances we're gonna try and get, although just 2 of them are enough. So ally at least 2 or all 4 of Poland, Austria, Genoa, and Castile. During this point, you can turn off your forts to save some money. At this point, you can cancel your guarantee over the Knights. Leave the one for Albania though. And as we can see, I've allied Austria and Genoa. I'm improving with Poland to ally them as well. It's definitely possible, and I'm gonna start currying favors with Austria as well. This is what my 3 diplomats are doing right now. By this point, even if you couldn't ally Austria right at the start, you should have been able to do it by now. In previous runs, I allied them in January and not right at the start. Once both of your armies have arrived in this province, you can merge them and take one cavalry regiment and destroy it. And you should also build 3 more infantry regiments and hire the Free Company right there as well. Alternatively, if you can't ally someone else outside of these 2 guys, and these 2 guys are the easiest, Genoa and Austria, you should start improving relations with Austria. We are gonna try and enter the HRE. If it's going too slow for you, you can also tell this diplomat in Vienna to establish communities, and you can also hire an improved relations advisor if you have him. I do have a level 2 guy, but he's kinda too expensive for me. And by May 1st, 1446, this is the date I get most often in my trial runs, you should have completed all your galleys and put them in the Aegean Sea, and your armies should be here. The reason it's May 1st is because May has 31 days, and it's a long month, which means we can just walk straight through Athens to snipe the fort in Morea, which Byzantium usually mothballs. Now in my case, they haven't mothballed it, but they do it more often than not, so make sure to declare on the 1st of the month so you can snipe it. But once we have a claim on Byzantium and our boats are built, we are ready to declare. Of course, first, we are gonna hire a general for our main stack, and we are gonna hire an admiral for our fleet. So it's time to declare on Biz. Just peace out their allies as soon as you can. If you can co-belligerent someone like Serbia, for example, you may be able to take the gold mine in Kosovo, but that might prevent us from entering the HRE because we will be too big. So we'll try and do that in the second war or in the war versus the Ottomans. And just declare on Byzantium for the conquest of Corinth. Venice has elections as every other republic, but we also have a lottery as them too. Basically, you can pick one guy from the guilds, from the traders, or the aristocrats and lose republican tradition for each of them, or let the lottery decide and not lose any republican tradition. In my case, all of these guys are pretty much the same. One guy has 7, another guy has 8, and another guy has 10 monarch points, but they're each divided up really in a not so good way. So I am in fact gonna let the lottery decide. They're pretty much all the same. And I got the 406 guy. Now, one thing I will tell you is that it is important to get relations with Austria up to 190 before you finish the war with Byzantium, because when we get them, even if we annex them or vassalize them, we'll still be too big to enter the HRE. And as we can see right now, we need 190. In my case, it's 179, but I will scornfully insult an Austrian rival, such as Savoy, for example. There we go. And I've gotten a bit more relations with Austria. Now we can join the HRE, even though we're at war. Make sure to do this while you're in the war with Byzantium, not after. Now, ideally, you would want to finish your war before the Ottomans declare on Byzantium. Now, I know the old strategy is, for a lot of these Byzantium wars, vassalize Biz when the Ottomans declare, so you can call in all your allies defensively. I don't think that's a very good strategy anymore. I much prefer to wait for them to declare on someone in Anatolia. So, if you didn't manage to finish off Byzantium before the Ottomans declared on them, like in my case, you're just gonna full annex them. It's that simple. We're gonna take all of their provinces, including Athens, and all their money. If you manage to beat them before the Ottomans declared on them, then you can just vassalize them regularly to keep around their fleet as well. But if it's for you, like it's for me, just full annex them. Boom, and that's our war with Biz done. But now, we're simply gonna be releasing them as soon as the war is over. Boom, there we go, and they popped out with Athens as well. And that's what your first war should look like. Either way, even if you do vassalize them and not release them, make sure to take Athens. You don't want to get 2 subjects, and if you don't want to core the province, just give it to Biz. So that's our first war done. Now that we've vassalized or annexed and released Byzantium, and once we've entered the HRE, we can also find some other allies, like Poland for example, and maybe even Castile. Let's check. I will have to improve with them, but I think I can ally them. Now, it's time to wait for the Ottomans to declare on some of these 5 or 6 nations over here. And we can station our troops in Constantinople. You should start currying favors with Austria, Genoa, Poland, whichever nations you can. And at this point, I do recommend building some more ships. If you don't have the money, feel free to take a loan. We're gonna be swimming in ducats later, and it's not a problem that we're losing money now. So build 3 heavy ships. Now that you're at peace, you can bump the guilds once or twice to put them in power. Once we declare on the Ottomans, we'll put the aristocrats back in power. And because we're just blazing through reforms as Venice, for your tier 2 government reform, I recommend taking political dynasties or republicanism. I do think political dynasties is slightly better, so I do recommend that. Don't take authoritarianism. When you get this awesome admiral from the mission Expand the Arsenal, of course you're gonna want to put him in charge of the main battle fleet and put the one we already recruited in charge of the light ships. When the Renaissance spawns, if you're lucky enough, you may have spawned it yourself. In my case, Montferrat spawned it. Oh well. And I was just able to ally Castile as well. This is what your ideal diplomatic situation should look like. But the most important out of any of these guys is Austria. Yes, we are quite a bit over our relations limit, but we'll be fixing it soon. Don't worry. When you do finish building those 3 light ships, you will want to merge them with your main fleet, which should be stationed in Constantinople. While you're waiting around for the Ottomans to declare on someone in Anatolia, you can start spying on some of your tiny neighbors over here, such as Trent, Mantua, Ferrara, or Bologna, and maybe even fight them before we fight the Ottomans. I'm gonna start spying on Bologna. By the way, I didn't declare on Aragon, I'm just helping out my ally Castile. And you can even start spying on some of these small guys right here, such as Serbia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. I'm gonna start spying on Bosnia. And because I am still waiting around for the Ottomans to declare on someone here, I will be popping off a quick war versus Bologna. You can try and do this as well if the opportunity arises. If not, we're just gonna be fighting these guys later and no need to worry about it. By the way, I did forget to say, but you should cancel your guarantee over Albania after you're done with the war with Biz. For your tier 3 government reform, you should take consolidation of power if you plan on staying a republic for the remainder of your game, but if you plan to switch to a monarchy around 1600, which I do recommend, you should take consolidate power in the Doge. And as soon as the Ottomans declare war on someone in Anatolia, in my case they did declare on Trebizond, who's allied to Georgia, I had to end my little war with Bologna there, but no worries, it is time to declare on them on our own terms. Like I said, your main army should be Constantinople. If you have a free company, keep it down here, but it doesn't really matter. And it is time to declare on the Ottomans a reconquest for Gallipoli, for example, and call in anyone you can. In my case, I can only call in Austria, but it's really no big deal because you do only need Austria. The worst allies that you can have is pretty much Akkoyunlu and Tunis, and Crimea as a march. In my case, they do have Akkoyunlu and Tunis, which is pretty bad, but luckily they don't have Crimea. The best case is they've allied someone small like these guys. It does happen. So as soon as they're fighting in Anatolia, it's time to declare. Of course, you're gonna move your main army straight to Gallipoli, pop out your fleet in the Sea of Marmara, and once your army is here, I do recommend bombarding Gallipoli. You should bombard all their coastal forts such as Salonik, Gallipoli, Kocaeli, and Sugla, and just try and full siege the Balkans. For your first idea group as Venice, I do recommend taking quality ideas. This will help buff our army, but also our navy massively. So quality ideas for your first idea group. By this point, Austria may also have Hungary and even Bohemia in your case, which is great. Unfortunately, they don't in my case. Now, even if the Ottomans managed to peace out whoever they were fighting in Anatolia, as long as you're blockading the strait here, and as long as you control these 2 provinces, they won't be able to cross. Of course, they could always find mill access to go around, but in my case, they haven't even done that, because Georgia obviously won't give them mill access. So right now we're focusing on sieging down the Balkans. And once you get around 50 to 60% war score versus the Ottomans, it is time to peace them out. Of course, you could 100% them if you want to, but why drag out this war any longer? So here's what I recommend taking in this first war. I recommend giving Byzantium all their cores back except for the Ottomans' capital of Edirne, easy war score and sieging later, so why not save it for later? I also recommend taking a province or 2 to release Bulgaria from, such as any of these provinces over here. I'm gonna give them this one, and if the Ottomans also have the gold mine in Kosovo, like in my case, you should take that too. If not, you're just gonna fight Serbia for it. But if the Ottomans don't have this, maybe you can do something like this perhaps, but in my case I am gonna be taking Kosovo. And that's enough for the first war versus the Ottomans. I'm also gonna take 80 ducats from them. And there we go, that's our second war done. The Ottomans, they're not a problem anymore. Time to chill from expanding over here and wait for our truce with the Ottomans to expire, and instead we can go focus on Italy for a little bit. By the way, I'm not fighting Burgundy, I'm just helping out Austria in the classic Burgundy versus Liège war. When the Shadow Kingdom event fires, of course, if you have entered the HRE by allying Austria, you should stay in the Empire if you're still allied to Austria. However, if you entered the HRE but your alliance with Austria was somehow broken, it is time to leave because you will get penalties if you stay in it and if you're not allied to Austria. So because I am, I will stay in the Empire. And like I said, during this time we will be focusing on Italy. I'll be declaring my second war versus Bologna because I had to end the one earlier since they seem like the easiest target to fight right now. When conquering stuff in Italy, you mainly want to focus on the Venice trade node first and on the Genoa trade node later. Of course, that doesn't mean you shouldn't declare on Milan if you have the opportunity to do so, but these provinces here are slightly more important than these ones right here, at least for now. And of course, when you fight nations over here in Italy, you will be full annexing most of them, with the exception of course of big nations. Don't try and full annex Florence, but you can totally full annex like Trent, Mantua, Bologna, Ferrara, nations like that. And aggressive expansion here should be non-existent because we've been focusing on Byzantium and the Ottomans the whole time, and by now, most Italian nations should have left the HRE anyway. In my case, only me, as Venice, and Siena here stayed in the Empire. So these other guys here won't be as mad. And now I'll be full annexing Bologna. I did forget to mention that if you did take provinces over here somewhere from the Ottomans, basically a province which we can release Bulgaria from, you should be doing that. And there we go, I'll just pop Bulgaria out of here. Thanks to these Bulgarian separatists, I was reminded. If you do manage to get the gold mine of Kosovo from Serbia or the Ottomans, it doesn't matter, one of those two nations will have it. And if you fought the Ottomans like I did, you'll have it from them. Otherwise, you're just gonna fight Serbia for it. It's pretty simple to get it. It's already gonna be in your state since we owned this province here at the start, which is in the same state as that one, and of course you are gonna want to dev it up to 10 production and lower the autonomy as much as possible. Now that we've taken care of Bologna, I will be continuing my conquests versus the nation of Ferrara. Once again, you're attacking whichever nation is weakest in these surroundings right here. Ferrara is pretty nice, it's an estuary, so there's more trade power, it also produces salt, that's pretty good, and Modena, sure, it's not a bad province either. So let's declare on them. I will call on Genoa. For your tier 4 government reform, if you took consolidate power in the Doge for governing capacity, you should take union of states for global trade power. If you took consolidation of power for max absolutism, then you should take administrative divisions. So it's this one paired with this one and this one paired with this one. Don't take provincial governments. Since I took consolidate power in the Doge, I am going to be taking union of states. And now that my war with Ferrara is done, I will be full annexing them as well and taking all their money. You can full annex Ferrara in Origins, you used to not be able to and you had to vassalize them. And pretty much at any moment that you have more than 190 relations with your subject Naxos, you should annex them. Ideally, you should have done it way earlier than me, I just didn't have enough relations with them. Once you fought 1 to 3 nations over in Italy, it's time to disperse your aggressive expansion a bit and focus a little bit on the Balkan guys that are left, such as Albania, Ragusa, Herzegovina and Bosnia, Serbia, and maybe even Epirus. I'm gonna be declaring on Epirus in my case, and I'm gonna knock out Ragusa too, since, well, it's a nice province and we do want to take it. And now that I've beaten up both of these nations that I'm fighting over here, I will give Epirus fully to Byzantium, even though they don't have a core in Cephalonia, and I'll take Ragusa for myself. By the time you've fought 2 or 3 wars in Italy and the Balkans, your truce with the Ottomans should be up. And once it is up, it will be time for your second war versus the Ottomans, where you'll give back Byzantium some final cores such as Edirne, you're gonna feed Bulgaria if you took a province to release them, and you might even take provinces for yourself. By this point, you will be a lot more powerful than in the first war, you'll have more allies, the Ottomans will be weaker, and it's overall just an easier war. So just declare another reconquest on them. I'm gonna declare for Edirne, and I'm gonna call in Austria and Genoa. And once you completely obliterate the Ottomans in this second war, here's what you're going to be taking from them. Obviously, you're going to be giving your vassals all their cores back, such as this one for Byzantium, and all of these right here for Bulgaria. I'm also going to take war reps from them, and maybe some province like this, which is actually our core, and they'll be left with this land right here, which might go back to Serbia from separatists, and these 2 tiny provinces right here, which they also may lose to Albania or something like that. Of course, we're going to be taking all of this later as well. And that's your second war with the Ottomans done. At this point, there's no need to expand Bulgaria or Byzantium even further, and you can start improving relations with them to start annexing some of them. Once you've grown Byzantium and Bulgaria to their maximum size, or basically beaten up the Ottomans for the second time, you can totally break your alliance with Genoa. We don't need them anymore, and we actually want their land. For your first stage ability, it's not a bad idea to take Venetian trade for that trade power, but it's really only limited to the Age of Discovery, so why not take aggressive expansion impact and maximize all that conquest? It's pretty much up to you whether you take this one or this one. I'm gonna take Justified Wars. Once you wrap up your second war with the Ottomans, it is time to continue your expansion elsewhere, in Italy or in the Balkans. In my case, I'm gonna be declaring on Bosnia right here. Basically, fight whoever is weakest over here or over here. and you're pretty much gonna be full annexing anyone over here or tiny guys over here. Since I fought Bosnia, let's see right here. Alright, that's not bad at all. We can totally full annex them. At this point, we're pretty much focusing on the Venice, Ragusa, and Constantinople trade nodes. Stuff outside of that, we'll focus on later. Of course, you should take stuff in Genoa if you can, but don't focus too much on stuff here or over here. And like I said, I will be full annexing Bosnia. For your tier 5 government reform, you should take the presidential system. And now that I've dealt with some of these guys, I'm gonna continue my conquest in Italy, this time declaring on Mantua right here. I'm gonna call on Castile since they do have a bunch of allies. Keep an eye on aggressive expansion. Even though we're dispersing it between 3 different religions and lots of different cultures, it can still get pretty high in the Balkans and in Italy. For your second idea group as Venice, you should take trade ideas. The stuff we get from trade leans into perfectly what we're trying to do as Venice and with our national ideas as well. So trade for your second idea group. And of course I am going to be full annexing Mantua over here as well. You should start annexing Byzantium immediately once you have above 190 relations with them. And if Austria happens to lose the emperorship in the Holy Roman Empire, or if you've dealt with the provinces or nations that are still in the HRE, for example, like in my case, when I conquer Trent and Siena, that's when I'm gonna leave the HRE. But since Austria has stopped being emperor, I'm getting some pretty severe penalties along with the submission to the emperor modifier, in which case I'll leave the HRE now. So leave the HRE if your alliance with Austria is broken, if they're not emperor anymore, or once you're done fighting nations that are in the HRE. You should be able to upgrade to a kingdom when you leave. Of course, if you never entered, you should have upgraded a long time ago. And by around the 1490s, basically by the time you need to fight your third war with the Ottomans, your realm should look a little something like this. Basically, we start off as Venice, fought Byzantium with a CB, vassalized them or conquered all their provinces and released them, and then waited for the right opportunity for us to declare on the Ottomans while they were busy in Anatolia with the help of our allies, most likely Austria or Genoa or Poland or someone like that. And in that first war with the Ottomans, you should have given Byzantium all their cores back, with the exception of Edirne. You should have also taken one province to release Bulgaria from, and if the Ottomans had Kosovo, you should have taken that as well. Otherwise, you would have taken it from Serbia. Once we were done with that, we continued our expansion in the Balkans versus some smaller nations over here, and in Italy versus smaller nations in the north, mainly focusing on the Venice and Ragusa trade nodes. And then we fought our second war with the Ottomans, where we gave Byzantium their last core back, gave Bulgaria all of their cores back, and maybe took something else for ourselves as well. After our second war with the Ottomans, we continued to do what we were doing in between those two wars, once again expansion into the Balkans in the Ragusa trade node, and expansion in Italy in the Venice trade node. And by now we are pretty much a superpower. We are on the great powers list, tons of dev, we are making tons of money. As we can see, 15 ducats a month right now, armies up, drilling forts activated. I do have 2 loans, but I only took them in order to build buildings, so it's not really a problem. As you guys can see, we're making 15 ducats a month. By this point, you should also have a very powerful navy. Of course, you do start off with one. I have 10 light ships here protecting trade in Venice, and I have my main battle fleet, 4 heavies, 20 galleys, and 15 transports to help move around armies, and this is the main battle fleet. This is the trade fleet. Of course, later on in the game, you are going to be building lots more trade fleets to protect trade in all of these coastal trade nodes right here: Genoa, Venice, Ragusa, Valencia, even Sevilla, Constantinople, and Aleppo, and even the ones in Africa, Safi, Tunis, and Alexandria. You're gonna want to protect trade in all of these and farm that cash. Like I said earlier, you want the aristocrats in power when you're at war and the guilds at power when you're at peace. Let me just bump them up. There we go, they're in power. We're gonna get construction cost and goods produced. Very nice. Now we're making even more money, 16.8 ducats a month. Even though we're making so much income from gold, inflation is going down since it's not that big of a part of our economy, and we're looking super strong. During all this time, you should have been building buildings as well. I've built marketplaces in all the blue provinces over here. As you can see, I've even been building them in my subjects, since of course we're gonna inherit those lands later, and basically I've built buildings in all the center of trade and estuary provinces. I've also been building production buildings in all the high value trade good provinces, such as we can see right here: salt, cloth, paper, glass, iron, copper, and provinces like that. You already know the high value trade goods. Sure, you could build some churches too. Apparently Byzantium has built some, or the Ottomans. I built a couple over in Italy, and yeah, we're looking good on that. By now you should have a pretty powerful army as well. Mine is consisted of 20 infantry, 4 cavalry, and 4 cannons right now. Let's see the combat width. In fact, it's 24, so I do need to bump it up a little bit. There we go, 22, 4, 4 should be good for about now. Ideally 7 cannons, so you can fight level 2 forts nicely. And that is what your situation should look like. After this point, you're pretty much going to continue to do the same things we've been doing so far, finishing off the Ottomans in the Third War by taking all their provinces in the Balkans and in Anatolia, focusing on the Constantinople trade node, and then you're going to finish off the rest of these provinces here in the Ragusa trade node and fight the Italians in order to form Italy. You're most likely going to be fighting these guys up here, leaving the Pope for last, and you're probably not going to be touching Naples yet if they're a junior partner of Castile or Aragon. In my case, they're actually not, but they are allied to Poland, which will make it pretty difficult to fight them either way. So you're probably going to take care of these guys right here, then take Roman stuff to form Italy, and then you're going to push along the south of Italy and in these islands right here, and later on in the Valencia trade node, and you should be dominating trade in the Mediterranean in no time. And after that is just a classic Italy game. For our first idea group, we took quality ideas because we needed to buff up our army, but our navy as well. It really does mesh well with our national ideas that are pretty boat focused. We are a very strong naval power as Venice, and you will remain a very strong naval power as Italy as well. For your second idea group, you should take trade, of course. We already did that, placing merchants all around these trade nodes, pushing trade to Venice in the early to mid game, and then moving our main trade node to Genoa in the mid to late game, because Genoa, it is a nicer end node than Venice. You can still funnel all of this stuff from over here into Genoa, no need to take it to Venice, so that's your main trade node for later on. And of course, you're going to be building all those buildings over here too, bumping up all of these centers of trade. You can only have as many level 3 centers of trade as you have merchants. So for example, I have 3 merchants, I can have 3 level 3 centers of trade. With trade ideas, we gain 3 more merchants, so that's 6 centers of trade, and you'll be getting merchants from policies as well and stuff like that. So lots of level 3 centers of trade to go around. For your third idea group, you should take another mill idea group. I recommend going with offensive or quantity for your third idea group, and for your fourth idea group, it really is up to you depending on how much you expand. If you don't plan on expanding too much, you should take economic for your fourth idea group. However, if you do plan to blob out a lot, you should take one of religious, admin, or humanist, because you are going to need to deal with some religious that won't be accepted by you, but of course this is partially mitigated by the fact that you will be trade companying stuff in Aleppo, Tunis, and Safi, in those 3 trade nodes. So make them trade companies: Aleppo, Tunis, and Safi. You can state up everything else such as Alexandria, Constantinople, Ragusa, and everything else over here that of course is Catholic, and you won't have too many difficulties converting the Orthodox provinces once the Protestant Reformation comes around and you get all those missionary buffs. So there might not be a need for religious or humanist, but it really is up to you. In my run after quality and trade, I would take quantity and economic, or offensive and economic, but like I said, it's really up to you. After that, it really doesn't matter, it just depends on your goals. For your tier 6 government reform, I recommend taking devolution of powers. For your tier 7 government reform, you can take either one. They each give us a +1 possible policy in admin or diplo. You're going to be judging this based on the idea groups you take. For tier 8, you should take citizenry. For tier 9, you should take bureaucratic apparatus for minimum autonomy in territories. That's going to help out with the trade companies. Or you should take appointment by committee. And for tier 10, if you plan on staying a republic the whole game, you should take strengthening executive powers. Or if you plan on flipping to a monarchy, which I do recommend when the age of absolutism starts, you should take seize executive power and become a monarchy. And after this point, you're going to continue to annex your vassals. You can release other vassals like Syria down here too, and ones in southern France like Gascony and Toulouse, and continue to blob out all around the Mediterranean. And like I said, by around the 1490s, your game should look a little something like this. If you're not that confident in your abilities, or if you're not sure if your game is gonna go like mine, this save file is available to all YouTube members in the Save Games Discord channel, and you can continue playing on as Venice from this date forward. Let me know in the comments below what's the next nation that I should do a guide on. If you want to watch me do stuff like this live, you can follow me on twitch.tv/TheRedHawkLive, and if you want to catch up on stuff from over there, you can subscribe to the second channel, link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like, it really helps out a lot, and if you want to see more guides or more EU4 videos in general, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. And you can become a member today and join the Discord, the link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.